Well, they said it was going to be cloudy, and it looks like it's going to be cloudy. So probably, I don't know what's going to be going on, but Sid and I are going to try to go for a beach walk, see if we can do that. And then I think today we're going to talk a little bit about, there's been a lot of discussion about, working here, living here, work permits, doing business here, and there's a lot to it. So I think we'll discuss that later today. Well, the beach walk didn't happen. Maybe later today, I don't know. The tide chart said it was high tide, and I said it can't be high tide. I was down at French Leave yesterday at 3:30, 4:30, and it was high tide then. So it can't be high tide at 9:30 in the morning and 3:30 in the afternoon. That just doesn't work. So the only other explanation is that there's a big pretty big storm out by Bermuda, which I know that's like 600-700 miles away, but it's just causing low tide and high tide to be about the same all the time, pushing the water. I guess we'll see later. We'll take a look and see if we can
give it a try. Cut through.
Yeah, we have a cut through here now. And we're gonna just see what it's like over here. I don't think it's, and I didn't bother bringing the drone because with the clouds and the way the color is, I could fly it, the wind's all right, but I wouldn't get any good color or anything, so I said, nah, no need. Yeah, and see, look, this is the other side. It's never high tide on both sides at the same time. So it's got to be something with that storm that's pushing the ocean. Because you can't have two high tides on the same. Usually there's no right. Usually if that side's the Atlantic side's rough, it's on the sound side. It's calm. And in this case, that's not the case. Right. No wind really pushing over. Sometimes she's not very ladylike. So let's talk about living here, working here, some rules about how things work, because there's a lot of questions that people, especially this time of year, where in a lot of places it's getting colder, so people say, oh, I'd love to live there and work there. One, this is a foreign country. This is not a subdivision or territory or whatever you want to call it of the US. Totally foreign country, okay? So totally different set of rules. So you could get work papers here, but you have to get them through a company. Somebody has to apply for your work papers. Doesn't have to necessarily be a company, but they do cost, okay? So it used to be, and I know it just went up, like a Haitian gardener, to get work papers for a Haitian gardener, it would be $1,000 a year. Now, it rises according to the skill level that you go with. So if you're up at the top and you've got, you're going to be an accountant or a managerial position or something like that, you're going to pay $10,000, $12,000 or more per year, okay? And at any time. those papers could technically be revoked. Okay, you do something, whatever, that can be revoked. Now, just because, suppose you get work papers as a resort manager, because you have work papers for that, doesn't mean that you can do anything you want. You can do that work on that permit only, period, okay? So you can't say, oh, I have Saturdays and Sundays free from my managerial job. I can go do another job or another business or whatever. No, that does not work. You can't. Your papers say you can only do this. And if you start working outside of the scope of those papers, immigration can say, bye-bye, see you later. That kind of thing. So now, when you've got, I mean, in that example, if you're a Haitian gardener and your papers say you're a gardener and immigration catches you, say, doing construction, you got problems. So if you got a gardener and you think he's going to be doing maintenance, handyman stuff, whatever, the next level up is handyman, I believe, on that lower scale down there. So you get the permit for the handyman. That way, if he's doing handyman stuff for you, by the way, not for anybody else. It's a little tricky there because if you say to him, go work for so-and-so, that's okay. But if he goes out and gets other handyman jobs or gardener jobs on his own, he can end up with problems and be back to Haiti. So you can't just come here and work. You've got to get papers, okay? That's one. You have to work within the scope of those papers. Now, if you do get papers, you have to renew them every year. And like I said before, at any point in time, those papers can say, for whatever reason, God only knows why. Nope, sorry. And then you're done. Bye, see you later. It's a little bit different in, you know, the family islands like Eleuthera, because everybody knows everybody and what they're doing and who they're connected to and all that kind of stuff. But you still can't, you know, people have said, oh, I should do this and I should do that and you should open this and open to that. There's certain things like that that I would never attempt to do because that's going to be stepping on somebody's toes. And depending on whose toes you're stepping on, can end up getting you in a lot of hot water and you'll get thrown off. I mean, it's like construction. You have a construction company in the US and you say, oh, I'm going to come down and build a house. I know how to do it. I'm legally, you can do it, you know, you and your wife or that kind of thing. But you say, oh, I'll just bring down the crew and tell them they're my cousins and nephews and that kind of thing. And immigration finds out, they're all on the plane and please don't come back. That's how it works. It has happened where that particular scenario has come about where construction companies brought people down to do certain things for their project. And those people go, as far as I know, they're not allowed to come back, period, even under vacation scenarios. So the working thing here, and what you also have to remember is it takes, one, you got to pay for the permit. Two, it takes a lot of money to actually live here unless you're just going to stay here permanent, period, end of discussion, which once you get papers, you have legal residency. So you can come and go as you want. You can stay here 12 months of the year, you can stay here a month, however it works. Now, as to your spouse could get, you have to apply for it, an additional permit so that she can also stay here nonstop. Just because like I have it doesn't mean Sid automatically gets it. That's a whole nother permit that you have to apply for. We've never done that because we come and go enough and we own a house here. If you own a house, you're entitled to be here for 8 months at a time. And they're usually pretty good about that because, you know, they know if you're here and you're not working, you're probably spending money, which isn't money from here, it's money from wherever you came from. So they're fine with all of that. But you've got to have all of these things. That just because you have the right to work doesn't, even with if your spouse gets the residency permit, that doesn't mean that she gets to work. She can't just go and do some job or some other thing. No, she does not have a work permit. The only way you get that is if you've worked here for 10 years or more, paying the permit fees every year. After 10 years, you can apply for permanent residency. Now, that's permanent residency. That's not necessarily permanent residency with the right to work. There's all these little lines here. So even after you've paid them $100,000 or $120,000 over the 10 years or whatever it happens to be, you still have to apply for that. And then you can reside here. If you want to, it's a whole nother process. If you want to reside here after that and continue to work here, then you pay this one lump sum and you're generally good to go. Now, that is not like citizenship. You don't have any rights to vote or anything else, and if you do something that's deemed terrible or whatever, they can revoke that and see you later, bye-bye. So that's, you know, some of the intricacies of living here and working here. Coming to visit is totally different than working here. So when people ask me, oh, I'd love to come down there, work, set up this, set up that, you can't. If you want to set up a business, you can, but you got to have a big chunk of change to do that solo. Generally how it works is if you want to set up a business here, you partner with a Bahamian. They get 51%, you get 49%. So they have the controlling factor. And what happens in so many cases of that is you've had the idea, the Bahamian signs on. If the idea is successful, then what ends up happening is the foreigner ends up getting squeezed out. The Bahamian takes over the business. It's just the honest to God reality of how it works. I know of instances, a couple just off the top of my head. So that's not a great way to go. There are other ways. There's all kinds of little nuances. I mean, years ago we started a construction company here, and I had a partner, and that wasn't working out well. So there was a few things that I did that I ended up getting the corporation to be solely mine. But it didn't work out. It was the wrong time. It was 2007, blah, 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 all that nonsense. So I let it lapse and didn't bother continuing with it anymore. But there's a lot to know about coming down here, working, living, permits. If you just come down here thinking you're going to just, oh, I'm going to come down, buy a house, start a business, work for somebody, maybe they need managers. No. Unemployment is really high here. What we need is employment. So if you're going to apply for something, you've got to be in a class where they say, okay, there's nobody who can do what you can do. We'll give you a permit. Now, if you want to start a business, there are ways to start businesses, but they have to be certain businesses that are allowed. Like starting a construction business in the Bahamas, oh my God, you better have plenty of money, because to start a construction business, or you got to know somebody. If you start that, that's generally outside of the scope of foreigners. Fishing, outside of the scope of foreigners. They won't let you start it. Now, if you wanted to come in here and say start a Chinese restaurant, okay, well, we don't have any. So, okay, yeah, you can start a Chinese restaurant. There's a lot of steps involved in there. You want to start a Italian pasta joint or something like that, good odds you'll be able to do it. But you want to open up a fried chicken joint, probably low probability they're going to give you a permit on that. or papers. And even if you start the company, you can't work at the company. That, yeah, I know, right. You own the company, you started the company, you've got all that, but technically you can't work here. That was it was a little fine line, and it never became a problem. When we had the construction company here, we owned the construction company, but I couldn't technically work at the construction company. I would have had to got work papers. So it was a little, and remember I've been here a long time, know a lot of people, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of nuances and a lot of things to know. So you can't just assume you're just gonna come over here, get work papers, start a business, live in the tropics, life's gonna be wonderful, da, 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 da. No, it's not that easy, sorry. See how strange this is? The water's been doing this all day. Usually it only does it at high tide, but we've been getting like high tide all day today. Must be that storm I showed you the picture of, or the starts of.
Low tide's in 2 hours.
Yeah. So we're gonna go to French Leave and see if we can't get a beach walk in. I don't know what's happening. That sort of storm I showed the picture of, where you can sort of see there's a little spin to it, but that's up our Bermuda. But I suppose something's doing this. I don't know what it is. And hopefully there'll be enough beach up here at French Leave to go for a walk. Well, we had a good beach walk. Good? Yep. Tide was down here, but it also helps because French Leave is, relatively flat. So you tend to have more beach to walk on, whereas Navy Beach has a steeper and until it goes out. So it was still much higher up than it should have been.
Yep.
Very odd.
Still high tide.
Yeah, it's still high tide. It can't be high. Whoa, that was a good one. It can't be high tide all the time. Back at it. Hopefully we get some pool work in. Carpenters are coming back from the roof they were working on, and there's still we got some jackhammering to do. All kinds of fun.